Hello and welcome to this week's Weekly Wisdom. Now, this week I wanted to talk about how effort isn't the problem when it comes to achieving things that we want in life, whether that is in our studies, in our careers, in our hobbies, or even in our family and social times. One of the things that can happen really quickly when we get in a situation where we're unfamiliar or things aren't perhaps flowing as well as we might like, is that we start bracing internally. It's that clenching. I know I get it in my solar plexus area, particularly, but also across my shoulders. Like it's a physical thing. And when we start doing that bracing, for a start, it's a signal to us that our nervous system isn't feeling safe in the current moment. And knowing that is great. We then need to be able to navigate that as well and to get ourselves back online. Now, I know that I do go on a lot about resetting our nervous system because it is just so important, right? It really affects everything that we do, we think, we say, we feel, we believe. All those things are so affected by how our nervous system is feeling. Now, one of the other things that might be a really good indicator that we're needing to do a bit of self care in that department is if we start feeling like we've just lost in a maze, we've got no map, we kind of know where we're going or what the outcome is that we're looking for, but we just don't know how to get there. Every turn seems to be going the wrong way. We're totally disoriented. Just recalling a lot of the first half of last year for me was very much like that. And it can be really demoralizing and it can bring up a lot of panic and a lot of shame because we're not performing how we think we should because we're caught up in this sort of spiral. So, one of the things that I really would encourage you to do when you find yourself in either of those two situations where you're either bracing or you're feeling lost and disoriented, and that is just to stop, to put down what you're doing, just to take a few slow, deep breaths, to notice where you might be feeling tense or perhaps something that, or you might notice what's been triggering that feeling of disorientation or tension. And writing it down can really help because we're getting it out of our bodies, we're getting it onto paper. And maybe there's like 50 things that are on that list that you need to get out. Get them out. And once you've got them out, you can look at them and you can actually decide if any of those things actually belong to you. Are they things that you need to do, or are they just things that you've got floating around that you're like, I've got to remember to do this, or I need to make sure this happens? And some of those things aren't even in our control. So once we've got them down, we can then go, okay, well, what's the first thing that we could do that's going to get us towards where we're wanting to end up or what we're trying to achieve in our longer term? So we're looking at alignment and also alignment with how we want to feel. So I start working on X. How is that going to help me in terms of my nervous system, in terms of how I'm feeling overall? So that's one step that you can do. And that's a really good one if you're feeling like there's a lot on your plate right now. The second step is obviously to actually start regulating our nervous system and to start calming ourselves down. Now, obviously, there's a lot of different ways you can do this. And I do share different tools. The one I wanted to just come back to today, because I really noticed it last night. I was having a bit of trouble sleeping. I'd woken up in the middle of the night. I had lots of thoughts coming in, and that is just to notice the sensation of touching. So sometimes I do this as patting your arms, but what I was doing last night was just this, just rubbing a finger against my thumb and just noticing the sensation of my finger on my thumb. So, what's the feeling from my thumb's perspective of something grabbing on it? And then bringing my attention to my finger and what is the sensation of my finger rubbing? Now, sometimes if we're not used to being in our body, that can be a little bit difficult to differentiate, in which case, what I suggest doing is you have something and you start with, okay, first I'm just going to feel what it feels like, my finger. And then I'm not sure how to do this, how that feels like for my thumb. Once I start getting used to the sensation and bringing my attention from one to the other, then I might come back and I might just do that. So the benefit of this one is that you can do this at any time. Like, it's not as obvious as doing this or anything. You can do it wherever, in a meeting. You're sitting in a meeting, you can just do that and just pay attention to the two things. You might be doing that in the car. Preferably, if you're driving, you're focusing on what you're driving. But if you're sitting there and you just need to calm down for a minute, maybe you're at the traffic lights, you can just do that. The other one, particularly if you're having trouble sleeping at night, because you have so many of those things going around your head, maybe you've tried writing them down and there's still some there, is actually to close your eyes, take some deep breaths. You're just taking a nice breath in through your nose, making sure you're filling up your belly, then just sighing the air out through your mouth. Just releasing the tension, just relaxing into the chair or the bed, wherever you are. Now, with each in-breath, I want you to imagine that you're picking up all the thoughts and you're pulling them into a golden ball. When you breathe out, that ball tightens. You breathe in, more being pulled up. I kind of sometimes visualize it a bit like a jellyfish with lots of long glowing tendrils that I'm pulling up. And then when you feel like you've got them all in a ball, you take one last deep in breath and you blow it away, blow it out. So it's no longer in your head. This is a process. We're getting it out of our head. We're blowing it away. Sometimes if it's like thoughts I really don't like, I might imagine them exploding when they get out there. But it's one way of just creating a bit of calm and space in your mind as well as in your body. Now, if you are someone who is studying or considering studying, or you know someone who's studying, there's a real theme here, you might be interested in checking out the masterclass that we have available, because learning can trigger our nervous system so much and make it really difficult for us to study. It's really important to make sure that we're addressing that component of it when we're getting ourselves organized to learn. So check out the masterclass. It's a great first step to start feeling like your learning is actually aligned with your brain, your body, and your real life. I'm Tanya Rutherford of Queen Bee Rising.